What's up YouTube? Today the subject is potato scones. They're an Irish, Scottish traditional accompaniment to breakfast, but you can have them any time of day as a snack or as a base of your meal. You can even chop them up and toast them and have them as croutons in a salad. In a pinch, you could technically make them into chips. And also, when you make your own, you tend to make it in a big circle and then cut it up into triangles. And every time I do that, I look at that big circle and think, pizza base. And a potato scone or a tatty scone pizza base could do the job if you so choose. And I'm also going to try and answer the question, can you add protein to potatoes? Is this needed? No. But I'm curious. I'm going to show you my original potato scone recipe, and then I'm going to throw in some other ingredients to try and boost that protein content and see how that affects the macros and the taste. I almost forgot that the final part of this video is going to be a taste test, not by me, because I don't want you to just take my word for it, because I could quite easily say that the potato scones I'm going to make have been amazing and you would make them and then think, what? There's going to be someone not related to the fitness industry who has a keen eye for authentic, traditional Scottish and Irish recipes and flavours. There are several variants of tatty scones in the supermarkets. Tesco and Asda make their own. They're cheap at 80p. They are about 17 to 18 grams of carbs, a few grams of protein and less than 1 gram of fat. At the opposite end of the spectrum, with a lot higher fat and inevitably much more flavour, but still at the same price of 80p, are Warburtons. These are circular. They come in at 20 grams of carbs and just over 5 grams of fat. Now, I really enjoy these because of that flavour, but the compromise is over 5 grams of fat, which is essentially the yolk of one egg. So again, it's your macros, they're my macros. It's about what you enjoy most and balancing it out throughout the day. There's also ranking potato scones, but the less said about these the better, because in a previous video I highlighted that their nutritional information is questionable, because several months ago the carbohydrate values suddenly dropped and then they went back up again and then they went back down again. So whilst these are nice, they can't be trusted. And also, they're about twice the price of the other two variants. The other two recipes that I'm going to use and try out today are going to involve two different types of protein. That's going to be whey, unflavoured, because this is savoury, and also wheat gluten or hydrolyzed wheat gluten. Now, if you're not familiar with wheat gluten, it's used in an abundance of protein bars, brownie recipes, as well as low carb, high protein bread. What wheat gluten does is bind a lot of ingredients together to help give it a sort of a thicker, chewier consistency once it's baked. It's very much like flour, but it just has this sticking ability. You've probably eaten wheat gluten without actually knowing about it because it's so high in protein and relatively cheap. Just to give you an idea about how prolific the use of wheat gluten is. Oating flapjack, hydrolyzed wheat protein, Siamex cookie, hydrolyzed wheat protein, glutamine peptide, Mo Farah protein cookie, hydrolyzed wheat protein, my protein white chocolate brownie, like have a taste of almost a Sainsbury's white chocolate cookie. Hydrolyzed wheat gluten peptides, grenade reload flapjack, whoa, that's a lot of ingredients there. Hydrolyzed wheat protein, bulk powders vegan brownie. This is one of the best brownies that I've had actually in terms of protein brownie. It actually hides the taste of the vegan protein. That said, hydrolyzed wheat protein. So you get the idea. It's great in those bars because it binds all the other ingredients together and gives them the texture that we're after. This isn't so much fitness nutrition, it's more nutrition experimentation. I'm sure you've done it as well in the kitchen. You thought, how can I add a bit more protein to this? And that's how you get great results or god-awful, unpalatable, inedible crap. And that's where I want this channel to try and help everyone, in that food is fuel and it has nutritional value. And that's the most important thing, not whether it's deemed to be healthy or unhealthy, because there's no healthy or unhealthy foods. It just comes down to quantities. And so if we can adapt certain foods and add macronutrients to some and take some away from another, so that we get a great balance throughout the day and enjoy the flavors of each and every one of those foods, rather than a meal being seen as a chore or bland because it's deemed healthy. That is the goal of this channel, because then you and I are far more likely to stick to that nutritional plan. That then gives us the energy to take on our training and push ourselves to the next level, to achieve your muscle gain goals, to achieve your weight loss goals, and just to be happier, to live a better life. Okay, enough talking. Let's get to the recipes. First things first, add your mashed potato to a big bowl and weigh it out. Then add a third of that weight, roughly, of plain flour and a third of the weight of the flour for butter. Add a pinch of salt and start mixing that all together. You can also see there that I'm mixing in the wheat gluten recipe, and it's binding a lot more quickly than the traditional recipe. That's because of how gelatinous the wheat gluten is. Let's compare and contrast that to the use of whey protein, and you can see how after mixing it with my hands, it just isn't binding at all. It's very wet. So I added more flour, and that actually kept making it worse. It didn't dry out, and so the mix kept getting wetter and wetter. Then after chilling your dough balls, weigh them out and either make them into individual ones like this and cook them on a low to medium heat, turning every couple of minutes until they're browned how you like. Or the most efficient solution is to make a big dough ball, flatten it out, and then you cut that after cooking like I have done here. Once it's solid enough to flip it over a bit like a pancake, and it will give you that lovely colour that potato scone should have. This is the wheat gluten cooking, highlighting the fact that they actually cooked a lot more quickly than the traditional recipes. And then turn them out onto a drying rack and you'll have tatty scones for days, as you can see here. I thought I'd include this whey protein cooking mix just to show that not everything goes perfectly, because this was an absolute mess. It was much more like a really thick pancake batter that I tried to spread across the pan. As you can see, it started sticking. It didn't cook very well at all. And after flipping it over, you can actually see that it doesn't really resemble a potato scone. It actually looks a bit more like a pancake. If you're unsure about how to calculate macros, don't be scared by this page. Let's just focus on several numbers at once and then work our way down and then across. So on the left hand side we have the total amount of mashed potato, which was 800 grams. Underneath that you can see that 100 grams of cooked potato equates to those particular macronutrients. I ended up adding 250 grams of plain flour, and so again we multiply that based on the 100 grams that we do have the knowledge for. Add that to the 80 grams that I ended up using of lightest butter, and then we move across to the top of the next page, where I recommend re-weighing all of your ingredients once they're all mixed in together, and then I'll know how much each is worth nutritionally. We can then work out the total macros. At this point it's completely up to you how you divide that. Through trial and error I decided to divide it by 20, simply because I knew that that would give me a decent weight and decent macros that were pretty similar to the shop bought potato scones. You divide the total weight by 20, which gives you 56.5 grams per potato scone. and then you can apply that same division to those total macros, which gives you 18 grams of carbs, 2 grams of protein, and just over 1 gram of fat. I have kept the calorie number out of this until now because it tends to just confuse and complicate matters because it's ever changing. So what I do is reverse engineer it by taking those final macros and multiplying them to work out the actual calorie count. 1 gram of carbohydrate is worth 4 calories. The same goes for protein, but with fat, 1 gram of fat equates to 9 calories. So you do those multiplications, 18.4 times 4, 1.9 times 4, and 1.38 times 9, add them together, and that gives you just under 93 calories per potato scone. So you join me in Scotland because I've driven up, no, because it's locked down, so that hasn't happened. I am here with my mother. My Scottish mother has been roped in to helping me out because I want to taste test these potato scones with her. Just a word of warning, I do occasionally slip into a Scottish accent. It's a habit because I've been brought up around it. Okay, so here we have my original recipe, the secondary flour recipe, secret recipe, Tesco's, and Warburton's. Okay, we're just doing a quick supermarket tatty scone taste test so that there's a base there to compare against my own creations. First up is the Warburton's. See, I think they are the best flavour because they're rich.
I actually don't like the texture.
Why not?
It's sticking to my teeth.
Okay. Honest opinion right there.
And I don't care for the look of this, it's far too pale.
The Tesco one.
Mm.
Okay, but Tesco and Asda make their own. They're very similar, pretty much identical. Probably made in the same factory.
It's alright.
But it needs that butter, doesn't it? Or whatever butter you choose to have.
Or an egg, or...
Yeah, there's no way that you would just have that one as a snack on its own.
No.
First up is the original recipe. This is one that I'm most interested by because it's the one that I haven't messed around with too much. It's got enough saltiness but not too salty. Texture.
Yeah, no, that is a nice tatty scone. It's not too salty.
More butter.
Too much butter.
Ruining macros there.
Yeah, well, I'm not concerned about them.
I never. These are the added protein ones with the wheat gluten. They come in at just under 10 grams of carbohydrate, but 9 grams of protein and 1.4 grams of fat, whereas a regular tatty scone only has about 2 or 3 grams of protein. That face tells me something's amiss.
I don't like this consistency.
No? Okay.
No. Compared to the first one, this is wrong. Sorry.
Could it pass as a potato scone? It's almost got like a wholemeal flavour. Like that colour, it looks like brown flour, but it's the wheat gluten. It's a bit like comparing a wholemeal pita bread to a white pita bread.
Yeah.
Because you get you tell someone that's a potato scone, or you tell someone that's a pita bread, they'll eat it. But it's still got a good taste to it. It's just not a typical taste, right?
Yeah, I'm not refusing to eat it.
That's good to know. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. That's a positive one there for the wheat gluten. Because the wheat gluten binds it. It's used more in breads, so that's why it gives it that texture.
Totally. That's why the consistency is so different.
Right. So that's one way of boosting protein in a tatty scone. Okay, final test is the whey protein potato scone that you and I have seen in the making.
This is... No.
No. That one, honestly, that one's like a dry pancake.
Oh, it's...
It's awful. It's god awful. I'm sure there is a way to make potato scones with whey protein. I'm not going to experiment any further with that because I don't think it's worth it. I think it's worth making potato scones if you really want to. If you want to experiment with that flavour, save money because it's a lot cheaper than buying them in the supermarket. But in terms of trying to boost the protein in them, there's not much need because you're going to have it with eggs or bacon or some sort of protein source. So it's a bit like all those fads in the supermarket at the moment where the brands are slapping labels of high protein in things that you don't really need high protein is, because it's just seen as the healthy thing to do. Because the truth is, if you know your macros and the food sources that you're consuming, you'll know that you can get protein from so many other sources. So I think that is my recommendation. Regular tassi scones are a definite result.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The wheat gluten ones are passable in the same way that a wholemeal pitta is passable to someone that only wants to eat white pitta. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you later. And my usual accent or this accent, you tell me which one to go for. Because I become a different person in this accent, there's no doubt about it.
Cheeky.
Aye, okay.
Lip.
Right. Aye, see you later.